Conversation series. I'm the chair of the Council of Christians and Jews, and we're here with two guests today to talk about Shavuot and Pentecost. I'll introduce them in a moment, but let's first begin by acknowledging that we're on the lands of the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne, and our guests today are Jewish educator Abe Schwartz and Mary Colo, Professor of New Testament from the University of Divinity. So we're talking about the festivals coming up of Shavuot and Pentecost. So maybe for some context, because I know Pentecost is related to Shavuot in a way, so maybe for some context, Abe, if you could tell us a little bit about what Shavuot is from a Jewish perspective, and maybe its connection to Passover as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure, thanks Alex. So Passover celebrates the exodus from Egypt of the Jewish people, when Pharaoh finally said, "Let my people go," and we went. And a lot of Jewish literacy talks about the fact that to go is pointless if you don't have a reason to go and a way to. There must have been a greater reason than just escaping Pharaoh. So some 49 days later, we count off 49 days, and then at the end of the 49th day, we actually do a count. I might talk about that in a moment. And at the end of the 49th night, when that 24-hour cycle finishes, we then have the festival of Shavuot.
The 50th.
The 50th day. Right. So, and that's coming up in a, well, depending on when people see this.
That's soon.
Very soon, yes. So that's the relationship to Passover, and we actually announce on the second night of Passover that we'll start the counting.
Yes.
The counting's got a name, it's called the Omer, O-M-E-R, and as traditionally at the Passover Seder of the second evening, there is a ritual right at the end of the night to actually formally begin the count. It's actually listed in the book, in the Haggadah.
Yes.
And we say the Hebrew words too, this is the first day of the Omer.
Could you say that in Hebrew?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
And as a result, one of the translations of the festival of Shavuot is Pentecost, like the Christian festival, but also the Feast of the Weeks.
Yes.
So exactly for that reason. So with that in mind, can you tell us what Pentecost is for Catholics, or in general for Christianity, and what it means to you?
Well, Christians really don't know the background to Pentecost. The only thing we know about Pentecost is found in this book, The Acts of the Apostles, where Luke says it was the day of Pentecost when the disciples were gathered. That's all he says. Doesn't give an explanation, just presumes everybody knows, which means most of his people are Jews.
Right.
They know what he's talking about.
Okay.
They know it's the 50th day after the celebration of Passover.
Right.
So part of my job in teaching with Christian groups is to give them the Jewish background so they can appreciate what this festival means. The festival of Shavuot, Pentecost, has such rich meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And these days, or actually this year in particular, Pentecost and Shavuot are on the same day because Passover and Easter were on the same day. But normally Pentecost would be on the 50th day after Easter Sunday, right?
That's correct, yes.
And is there a significance to the 50, or is it because it's after the same as the Jewish connection of the 49 days?
It's the significance of the 50, and we take our counting from Easter Sunday, so it gives us our 50 days. But I do like your story of you actually counting the days down. We have a great...
Well, days up.
Well, beg your pardon,
Yeah.
days up towards Pentecost.
And in a spiritual sense, we actually feel like there's many, I don't know if you know the word Kabbalah, but deeper Kabbalistic spiritual meanings underpinning every one of those days. And when we get to the end of, for example, 6 days, we say this is the seventh day, which makes 1 week.
1 week.
And when we get to 13 days, we then say this is 1 week. And 6 days, then we go this is 2. It continues like that. And when we get to 49, if you do your deep study well, you're getting an elevated sense of godliness as you're getting close to the big moment, which I'd love to hear what Pentecost is.
Well, see, we don't do that. We do the 40-day preparation, we call it Lent, leading up to our Easter, but then come Easter, that's the highlight, and Pentecost is sort of tacked on as an extra.
Interesting.
We don't do what you do, and I think if we could learn what Pentecost, what the Festival of Weeks was about, we might have a greater appreciation. All it means to us is this is the day the Holy Spirit came to the disciples,
Okay.
according to Luke.
If I may ask a question, so if your main reference to the count is 40 days of Lent,
Yes.
excuse my ignorance, do you actually count each day of the 40 days, even if not the 50?
And, well, we certainly count each Sunday, first Sunday of Lent,
Okay.
second Sunday of Lent. So we are approaching that Easter moment with great steadfastness. But then once Easter comes, that's it.
Right.
We then, the next great festival is Pentecost, but many people wouldn't even know
Sure.
how it's connected to
Sure.
our Easter.
Whereas for Shavuot could potentially be called the Revelation.
Yes.
Right.
So maybe you can explain what that is and
Yes.
what because unlike Pentecost, which you say there's not very much that happens so much, for
Yes.
Shavuot is a lot happens. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that is.
Sure, I'm happy to. So, well, the most well-known concept of Shavuot, and I might just add that many Jews actually, if they're not observant regular rituals through progressive any of the streams, Shavuot might be a festival that they don't keep or even know very much.
We'll come back to that in a second.
I'll
But
come
just
back
tell us what happens on Shavuot, and we'll come back to
On
that.
Shavuot, we receive the Torah. So
Ah,
on
yes,
Shavuot,
that's right.
on Shavuot, how that's known mostly to the world,
Yes.
including Jewish children everywhere, is we receive the Ten Commandments.
Right.
So the Torah portion, the Bible portion that's read out on Shavuot morning,
Yes.
includes the reading of one of the two times in the Bible, which it has
Exodus.
the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, and all the sermons are around the morality,
Right.
around that.
So maybe Abe, you can tell us a little bit some of the rituals that take place on Shavuot from a Jewish perspective.
Sure. So, well, Mary, it's a fascinating festival because we receive the Torah. It's revealed. It's a festival of revelation. It gives purpose to the Exodus 49 days earlier. And so what we actually do is we stay up all night as the custom and we learn Torah. In some congregations it may be till midnight with a series of classes. In Jerusalem it might be all night long until sunrise, where people all attend the Western Wall in the morning. It's the most beautiful sight. We also have some ritual customs around food, and the most well-known one is that we only eat dairy on that day. So no chicken soup.
No chicken.
No, but all the children of learned Jewish homes in the world will tell you that's the day of the cheesecake or the ice cream party.
Right.
And most synagogues will actually have freezers full of ice creams in preparation for the Saturday morning. Well, not the Saturday morning, the morning service.
Okay.
Does that do, Alex?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for explaining that. Are there any customs that you know of or rituals associated with Pentecost?
No, we don't have the customs that you're describing. The colour changes, the vestment changes to red, that's why I'm wearing red today, and that's because the story in Luke, and this is where it probably picks up what was happening, that there were pilgrims flocking to Jerusalem in the first century.
Right.
Because the story is told that this is the day the Spirit came down on the disciples in tongues of fire. And in response, when Peter spoke, everyone from all the nations of the world could understand him. So it's the coming of all, and then Acts actually reads all the nations that come, and yet they all hear Peter speaking in their own language.
Okay.
So it does pick up some of the
Miraculous.
the miraculous nature. To my mind, and the whole thing of first fruits, that it began as a harvest festival, that why it gets associated with the coming of the Spirit in the Christian tradition is because Paul called the gift of the Spirit as the first fruits. Right? So that's in Romans 8, and Paul describes the Spirit is the first fruits of Christ's redemption. Okay. So with that image of first fruit, this is where Luke does something, do I say naughty? See, God doesn't have a timetable. Luke has. In John's Gospel, the Spirit is given from the cross on Easter Sunday. There's no time when the community don't have the Spirit. But Luke sort of pushes the pause button, wait, and has the Spirit coming 50 days later, I think, to deliberately tie in with this festival of Shavuot, because it's as the first fruit. So that imagery is strong in Luke. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the timetable the Spirit followed. It's what Luke did.
Right.
Yeah.
So both of these festivals sound like they're very important to your various religions, but at the same time they're maybe not as well known. In Judaism, without the Torah, Judaism would probably not be what Judaism is today. And Pentecost, it's often said that that's the beginning of the church,
The
beginning of the church.
So despite that, a lot of Jews.
On that note, so that's my question. So why do you think this particular festival, is less well known than it should be, and what can we do maybe to get some of that knowledge more well known, apart from talking about it today?
Well, I mean, you've got you've got the hook of the Ten Commandments.
Yes.
So that should be. I mean, that is considered in most of the Western nations for sure as the basis, the foundation of the legal systems throughout. So thou shalt not steal. We've got all of our stealing laws and trespass law. It all comes from that. So perhaps when legal studies or law is taught, maybe there could be more reference to the origins of the concept of it. That's perhaps when parenting classes are done, we could talk honouring mother and father. Maybe the link isn't made back to the Bible.
Maybe not.
But also, Abe, I'd say go back to first fruits. Not just calling it weeks, but originally first fruits, and speak of it as the first fruits of the Exodus.
Oh, that's nice.
That the coming to Sinai, the becoming a people covenanted to God, and being given a way of life. Law doesn't stay much to Australian people,
but
first fruits, talking about it as a way of life. A way of living freely as God's children.
I like that. And another angle on that, we were talking earlier about the Book of Ruth, for example, is read during the story of Shavuot. And one of the parts of the Book of Ruth, not necessarily the part that's talked about the most when you interpret that story, people will talk about Ruth and Naomi and I'll go where you go, that famous sentence.
Yes.
But a beautiful chapter refers to Ruth being able to go and pick up the leftover harvest from the corner of the fields. Now, maybe in a world that's concerned with humanitarian issues and even things like homelessness and poverty and the food economy, maybe the Go Harvest, Oz Harvest type organisations, maybe they could have something like that element of the Shavuot story as their tagline in their branding when they go to Coles and Woolies to pick up. They're actually following a message from the Old Testament.
What Ruth did, and see, it really goes back a very long way, because the shift to reading the story of Sinai really happened when the temple was destroyed.
Sure.
So before 70, the focus was harvest, Ruth, etc.
Right.
With the destruction of the temple in the year 70, we can't bring our sheaves of wheat any longer.
Right.
So gradually there's this shift to, it's the same time that the children of Israel arrived at Sinai.
Right.
In that third month, the 50th day.
Right.
So it really, there really is this constant re-looking at what does the festival mean.
Okay. And
I think we should maybe leave it there.
Okay.
But I think this year in particular we have great parallels between our two faiths. In particular because both the calendars coincide and both festivals are on the same day, which is quite unusual as obviously it was for Passover and Easter. So as a final thought, maybe just one thing about what you want to do this year, maybe to acknowledge the other on this festival. And we'll leave it at that as a final thought, if there's anything you'd like to say.
Well, I teach. I've got students in Africa, India, Pakistan, and with Pentecost coming up, I made a video for them.
Lovely.
To make sure they knew the background. The background in the Festival of Weeks, its background as a harvest festival, so they could appreciate Judaism more. Because the more I teach New Testament, the more I uncover of our Jewish
The
roots.
Jewish roots of that, that's
all
good.
the time.
And Abe, anything for you?
Well, the part that's coming to me is, of course, it comes from the reference to the Book of Ruth a moment ago, is it's also known very much by many people who have converted into Judaism as the festival sort of conversion because of the story of Ruth being told. And I know personally just some people who have converted to Judaism who regard that every Shavuot is their Jewish birthday.
Oh,
They
that's
think about it like that.
lovely.
And that they will, if they learn the portion to read it in the synagogue,
Yes.
which is we do on a normal Sabbath even,
Yes.
they will study it, and then every year they will come back because they've already learned it by rote.
Right.
Yeah, and they will redo that portion.
Oh,
But
lovely.
Beautiful
to me,
tradition.
there's a messaging in that about sometimes the Jewish community, I'm going to be a bit naughty now myself, sometimes we're not perhaps as welcoming as we're supposed to be of the convert. And maybe the moral for me, especially in this conversation, is whether the person who's come in is Christian or any other faith, or a person not of faith, what are we doing to really treat everybody with the same respect and acknowledgement?
Yes.
So on that note, thank you very much. I think that's a wonderful place to end, and to say thank you to my two guests, Mary Colo and Abe Schwartz. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and maybe wish everyone a happy festival of Shavuot, of Pentecost, or any other